Welcome, Winthrop, to the Winthrop Town Council meeting of July 7th, 2020. It is 7 p.m. and we are having this meeting as a remote Zoom meeting. Each council at their own home, and we are meeting remotely. There is a calling number for public comment and public hearings. That calling number is 646-558-8656. Once you call in, there is an ID number. That ID number is 845-4787-5427. I will repeat that again just before the public hearing. At the present time, I am calling the meeting to order, and I am going to ask the Ruggiero, Council Ruggiero, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Have the flag up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, Denise, would you please take a roll call?
Council Ruggiero.
Here.
Council Flockhart. Council DeMarco.
Here.
Council Christopher.
Yeah.
Council Honan.
Here.
Council Conti.
Present.
Council Farino.
Here.
Vice President Lettieri.
Yeah.
President Boncory.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of June 19, 2020? Motion to approve. Motion to approve the minutes is made by Council Carino.
My hair.
Seconded by, I believe, Council DeMarco.
I have a change.
Okay, I was just going to ask that, Barbara. Are there any omissions, deletions, or amendments? Council Flockhart.
Yes. On page 5, where it was during the time when Vice President Lettieri was making some motions on the one where he was passing 65,000, you have left off, it says pass 7 to 2, but you have left off Councilor Ruggiero and myself as members who voted yes. Oh, I apologize. Okay, we'll fix that. Okay, that's it.
Okay, are there any other amendments, omissions, deletions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion the motion's been made. Would you please take a roll call?
Councilor Ruggiero.
Yes.
Council Flockhart. Yes. Council DeMarco.
Yes.
Council Christopher. Council Honan.
Yes.
Councilor Conti.
Yes.
Council Farino.
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri.
Yes.
President Boncory.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carried unanimously. Moving on to general informations and recommendations, and I would just like to talk about the 4th of July. I hope everybody had a great, safe 4th of July. It was a lot different this year because of the pandemic, and I want everybody to recognize we still are in a pandemic. But no matter about putting out those advisories about staying safe and social distancing and voluntarily wearing masks, I was very disappointed to see probably 1,000 or more people on Mule Beach, not social distancing at all, a great deal number of young people, and they were just together in groups of up to 100, not social distancing. We still are in a pandemic mood, and there is a recommendation that everybody wear face masks. Since May 28th, we have had 20 new cases of COVID in the town of Winthrop. We had 228 COVID cases on May 28th, and now with 1 month gone, just the month of June and 7 days in July, we're up to 248. That's 20 new cases in our town, which I thought was so very safe. Just stay safe, please. Wear your mask if you're going to be close to anyone else. Also on the 4th of July, despite all the advisories that the police put out and the fire department put out about illegal fireworks, we were inundated with fireworks, and some going on until 1 and 2 in the morning, and that really was not a good idea. There are too many people that are in a situation at this time, even though we're celebrating the 4th of July, we would ask not to celebrate it with fireworks, but people in Winthrop still did, and I hope we find out who some of them were, Chief. Okay, and Austin, do you have some general information?
Sure. So, kind of before we move on, I wanted to hit on 2 items that have garnered some attention outside of some of the stuff with 4th of July. Like the council president said, we are still in the midst of a public health emergency. When you look at the troubling numbers around the country from other states that have opened, all it makes me do is pause and think about what we are potentially putting people at risk of, the more that we consider interacting with one another. So going into this fiscal year, we are not in a position that we can open the library to the public or the DeLeo Senior Center to the public. There is a limited ability to house staff there because the buildings aren't built out to the safety precautions that we would like to have in place to ensure that our employees are safe. We are still about 2 months away from being fully built out in Town Hall, amongst other buildings, to get our employees in the position to be safe. With that said, due to the fact that we are still a matter of months away from being able to increase the staffing inside of those 2 buildings, the library and the Council on Aging, we have had discussions with the unions, the bargaining groups that represent certain individuals within their departments, and we have determined that we are going to be pursuing furloughs and layoffs for some of these employees. This is not to say that these buildings are closing on any sort of permanent basis. The DeLeo Center is named after the current Speaker of the House, and it is something that is very personally important to him, along with the library that is one of the long-standing community centers of this town. Those 2 facts are not lost on me. What I cannot do at this point in time is keep employees safe in those buildings. So we're in a position that we are not positive what date we will be able to bring staff back into those buildings, let alone invite the public back into those buildings, so we can no longer pay those employees to work from home. There is a lack of actual work that they can do remotely for those specific departments and positions. So at this point in time, we are pursuing furloughs and layoffs. That said, in both union agreements, we have recall rights. So when we are in the position to be able to offer more pickup and drop off in the library, for example, we have to move more materials around the library, we have the ability to recall staff. Same thing with the senior center. If we are in the place that we can do some different types of events and do them safely, whether it's in the building or outside of the building, and we need additional staff to be able to help with them, we will recall that staff and we will get back to work. If we are luckily from the state met with the state aid that we need to support our budget, or if we are met from funding from the federal government. The CARES Act passed the last fiscal year. There's a chance that the HEROES Act would pass either within this month or later this fall. If either of those time periods, the HEROES Act passes, that means more money for this municipality so that we can try to resume a normal level of service in more departments. So I do look forward to reopening these buildings very soon. This is a temporary measure. I know that there's been a fair amount of attention that has been paid to this over Facebook and over emails. I tried very hard to respond to every email. Some was just an acknowledgement that I received your email. Thanks for the message about this, your support about the library. Sometimes that's all that the response was, but I did try very hard to respond to every email about the topic. So with that, we have made a public statement about it, a press release that went out about a week and a half ago. There was an article in the Winthrop transcript about the topic this past week. We have talked with both of the unions. I actually talked with both union groups earlier today, both library and the clerical unions, concerning this topic. This is not something that is going to go away. Just because these decisions were made for a short period of time do not mean that these departments are undervalued or anything like that. I look forward to bringing the staff back and getting back to a sense of normalcy. Being that we're in the middle of a public health emergency, I would just ask for patience for the community. These are priority items that we will bring back. And again, I do not want to lose staff during this time. I look forward to bringing this staff back. I worked hard in the budget process to maintain a certain level of funding so that this town can function and be financially responsible. So we look forward to bringing our employees back into these buildings and welcoming the public back to them. We just want to ensure that we can keep everyone safe. So with that, I know that there's going to be some correspondence about the matter, and there will be some items that people bring up in public comment. But I just want to make sure that everyone heard kind of directly from me that I hear you, and I hear the community, and I understand where there's a lot of different viewpoints about this and passion about these topics. These places are not going away. The funding is not evaporating. We look forward to reopening these buildings when we can do it safely. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. And the senior center is taking care of emergency situations, and they are doing Meals on Wheels and any kind of emergency situation. There are people that are working in there, but we cannot have groups in there. Same with the library. There are people working in the library, and we're hoping to set up some kind of call-in, pick-up outside books in the close future. Is that correct, Austin?
Yes, it is correct. And just to expand on that, the Council on Aging Director and Library Director both have been working on plans of how to reopen these buildings. This is not a situation that we did not plan for these circumstances. What we are dealing with is the fact that we cannot time correctly when we are going to be reopening these buildings, as much as we would like to. There is a limitation of materials like plexiglass and hand sanitizer and things like that to install different faucets and things like that. Honestly, after the articles that I read this weekend about this virus being airborne and things like that, we have to try even harder to keep people safe. So the idea that we're going to open these buildings purely out of passion is not necessarily the direction that we can go. We need to go with the hard science and what we can do to keep people safe. That is my utmost priority on these matters. So we are still working. We are trying to provide level of services and then with limited staffs. And again, I look forward to when we're in the position that we can really get these buildings ramping up to a normal level of service.
I agree, and it's my feeling as well. As I said, we had 20 new cases in the past 37 days. I don't want to see that doubling or tripling because we've opened up to large groups too soon. And hopefully we get through the rest of this pandemic without another 20 a month. All right, we're moving on to a public hearing. And again, the call-in number, please write it down if you have a pencil and paper. The call-in number is 646-558-8656. And the ID number is 845-4787-5427. And we will be going into a public hearing. The present time is public hearing on the town council's vote to modify the general budgets to facilitate the June 30th, 2020 closing of the fiscal year 2020. And I would ask Councilor Terry to begin the hearing.
Thank you, Council President. This is a yearly event that we are recapping and closing out funds. You cannot have a departmental budget or line item budget that is underfunded. And there's probably about 10 or 12 that have been identified. And then there are sources of income that departments that are over budget, under budget, I should say. And they're just interdepartmental transfers, and it's something that we've done since the beginning. And some years there's more than others, but we're pretty much in a normal year right here. There have been 2 amendments to it, 2 additions that were made since a couple of weeks ago. Just in finalizing the books, they came across 2 additional ones that bills had not come in yet. And we did have a finance committee meeting earlier where we discussed all these. We went into line by line. The CFO was extremely articulate and diligent about explaining each and every line item, and the committee unanimously felt comfortable with all the relatively normal transfers going on. And we will be making out of committee, we will be making a unanimous recommendation to approve this transfer.
Okay, does anyone want to be heard from the public at this public hearing on the budget? Does anyone want to be heard on the 2020 budget? Does anyone want to be heard on the 2020 budget?
Council President Lemire, Karen Chavez had her hand up.
Okay, Karen?
No, I'm waiting for public comment.
Okay.
Sorry.
Anybody want to, all right, that's okay. Anyone in the public hearing? Hearing none, any councilors want to speak in the public hearing? Hearing none, I will then close the public hearing on the budgets for the closing of June 30th, 2020. Hearing is closed. All right, I'm going to just skip public comment for a moment and go to correspondence. And the reason I'm going to correspondence is because many of the people that may be waiting to speak in public comment, I wanted them to make sure that they know that we have received their correspondence. And we've received quite a bit of correspondence in the past 2 weeks. And they were on library concerns, human rights and diversity committee requests, and some miscellaneous concerns. The people that were concerned about the library closing, I'm going to read the names off so we know that we got your message. Rosemary Russ, Eric Risty, Julia Harrington, Christine Boncory, Samantha Bracey, Henry Munson, Dawn Sullivan, Linda Evans, Katie Bell, Alexis Therese, Kristen Gilzian, Suzanne Leonard, Dominica Bonanno, Stephanie Recchia, Sandra and James Oresti, Eric E. Codluck, Melissa Peroni, Jennifer McGeorge, Laura Foley, Allison Dura, D.A. Aliberti, Valerie and Stephen Dalton, Andrea Pavlos, Mary Alice Shockey, and Katrina Donovan. They were all concerned about the library closing or any possible layoffs. As far as the Human Rights Diversity Committee request, we received numerous requests to form a committee, and I'm going to bring it up under new business and send it to one of the council committees to act on putting together a mission statement for this committee that we will be taking applications from people to be on the committee by the end of this meeting. Okay, those people were Stephanie Recchia, Terry Bracey, Ruth Porter Bernstein, Alexandra Jamel, Donna Segretti Riley, Lainey Abrams, Leonora Foley, Allison Dura, Alexis Therese, Wendy Malar Page, Tanya Menedita, Deborah Serbo, Vinnie and Kelly Wisniewski, Suzanne Leonard, Ellen Kovitz, Julia Wallace, and Justin Pasquarello. We also received miscellaneous concerns. From John Vitaliano about the Center Business District, from Julie Woodside asking us to prohibit parking at Deer Island and at the beaches, from Anthony LaFacci, who's opposed to parking stickers at Port Shirley, and it's the opposite point of view of Julie's. Tom Leclerc, who requested masks not be mandatory, but only be voluntary, and allow people not to wear them if they don't want to. And from John Stanley, we received a correspondence with an issue about the joint meeting between public safety and the transportation committee, and Bob being allowed to vote. Those were the correspondence. I will now open the meeting to public comment. Is there any public comment?
Yes, let me bring Karen Chavez back over. Karen?
Good evening.
Good evening, Karen.
My same old thing, the ferry. The ferry has been open now for 7 days, and I want to know if anybody can tell me in the last 7 days, specifically Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and today, how many passengers actually used the ferry. Saturday and Sunday, that's another issue, but I really would like to know how many people have actually used the ferry. When the guidelines first came out from TNG on the use of the ferry, I did contact Meredith right away because it did say that masks were only necessary inside the cabin. And I asked Meredith why not outside, and she told me it was supposed to be inside and outside. I also asked her who was going to monitor this, and she told me the captain would be monitoring the use of masks, both on the staff and the passengers. And I asked also about the cleaning after each run, and she also told me that the staff of the ferry would be using CDC guidelines to do that. But my major concern is I would like to know really how many passengers have actually used the ferry.
Okay, Austin, can you answer that?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can request that and get that back to you all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. All right, any other public comment?
Yes, we have Katrina. Katrina, if you want to unmute yourself.
Okay. So I know that the counselors have heard from me on this before, but we at the library are just really wanting to reach the community with very needed services. And I feel like if we've got restaurants open for outdoor seating, we're talking about restaurant indoor seating, why are we prioritizing those things and we can't do anything for the people who can't afford a restaurant but need a book?
And we hear you, Katrina, and we got your letter as well. And state office buildings aren't open. Town hall is not open yet, so we can't do anything but when our attempt, as I said, to try to have a call in and pick up so you can get a book in the very near future.
So we only have 2 out of 10 staff there.
Correct.
There are about 2,000 books still out in the community that need to be checked in. There's no way that the director and the assistant director can check in 2,000 books and turn around books that people are looking for on their own. I know that we're calling this temporary, but the longer all of those materials are out in the community and not being circulated, the more likely it is that those things will be completely lost. And the things that are sitting on the shelves that are gathering dust need dusting, they need to be checked on, or we're going to lose a lot of those as well. So we're not just talking about staff, we're also talking about all of those resources and materials that the community has invested tax dollars in purchasing that need attention or they will deteriorate. I know we're talking about this as a temporary thing, and I understand that, but we're not asking for a specific date. We're asking for a plan that says if COVID cases continue to drop to X number or the decreasing curve continues to get to this level, then we will revisit starting phase 1. Or we will revisit starting phase 2 when the COVID cases in Winthrop are at X level. We just want a plan that includes something that brings accountability so that it's not just, oh, well, we'll start phase one whenever we really think we're ready. But no, we'll start phase one when the science says this.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on public comment?
Yes, we have about 8 people waiting, so.
Okay, let's,
Sure,
it should-
Richard Allen, you're next up for public comment if you want to unmute your phone.
Hi, everybody. I'm
Hi,
Richard
Rich.
Allen. Hello, I'm Richard Allen. I'm the president of the Winthrop Library Staff Association. And the first thing I
Hey,
want to
Richard.
know, how you doing? Hopefully you got my mail.
yes.
I want to present to the Winthrop Town Council a petition that was generated. About 1,500 people have signed on. About 400 Winthrop residents have signed on saying about opening the library. I want to know if I can present that to the council.
Absolutely. I mean, you have a copy of it? You could deliver it to Denise Quist at Town Hall so she can circulate it to all of us?
Yeah, yes, I can.
Okay, I think that would be the right way to do it, Rich. And I
Okay.
appreciate it. And I know the support out there for the library because we've been getting inundated with calls and also emails. So
Also-
we know.
Also, I like to mention that during I had to reach out to Austin about what's happening about layoffs and stuff. And last week we had several meetings. The first meeting was that we were going to be laid off on July 1st. Then we made a counter proposal to have a 30-day furlough starting July 1st and ending on 3rd.
Yeah, Alan, I don't know if we could be talking about union negotiations that you had with Austin on public television.
Okay.
I really don't think that that's allowed. I know you've dealt with Austin and Austin has been working with the union, but I don't think it should be or could be publicized, whatever was said in union negotiations. If I'm wrong, Austin, tell me.
You're correct, Council President.
Okay.
Well, I
All right, Rich.
want to say that, you know, we are, no, one, we were never given an opportunity to even provide any public services. Like we could have been doing database cleanup, we could have done virtual storytelling and reference like other libraries, but we were not given an opportunity to do it. Type of thing. And like flip side thing, you could have at least 2 people doing that, but we were never given an opportunity to offer that to the community. And now people are being forced to make a decision to be retired to keep their health insurance, because if we were laid off, we would have lost the town health insurance. I mean, we have one, the Shones librarian, who's been working at the town since 1970. She's been there for 50 years. So now we, 3 of us have to be considered to retire, and then our rest have to file for unemployment. And the point was, we knew about. I mean, I can understand that. No, Austin wants to protect the employees and the patrons of, I don't know, from the virus and everything. And I mean, other seasoned towns have somehow got their protective equipment and plexiglass. And in fact, I can get emails from Office Depot and Staples saying they have plexiglass and other stuff available. So, but we didn't start bargaining until late in the game. Even though the town knew there was like $1 million deficit. And excuse me, people are, the members are kind of upset what's happening. It's like what happened in 2009, where most of the part-timers were laid off. I was cut down to 10 hours. Luckily, I could afford the COBRA insurance because the feds had a stimulus thing. And so members are kind of upset and concerned about the library. They want to make sure people, especially the senior citizens, who are probably isolated and everything, and they can get books and everything. And some people members would want to try to help in that process, but we were never given an opportunity to even offer something like that. And so.
Richard, thank you very much.
Okay.
Austin is the CEO of the town and the only administrator that's in charge of this stuff. The council really cannot overrule him on any of his decisions. I'm sure he's working to try to get this town running as best he can and as safe as he can. So I thank you for your comments, and I want to remind anyone else coming on public comment that there is a time limit in speaking. Do we have anyone else in queue?
Yes. Michaela, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. Please excuse
Hello,
me.
Michaela.
Hi, I have some background noise because I have 3 young children here with me. I want to first acknowledge that I received excellent communication from our town manager, Austin, from my representative for Precinct 5, Pete Christopher, and also from Ron Bergman, the head of the library trustees. So obviously I'm going to be talking about the library, and I appreciate the strong focus on safety that our town manager was talking about. I want our librarians to be safe. They're very beloved of this town, especially the long-acting ones like Alan and Pete. We're a homeschooling family. Alan knows our children and sets books aside for them and helps us with our homeschooling efforts. I checked other libraries in our area to see what they were doing. And I just want to share with you that Chelsea Library has been open, offering services 4 days a week since June the 22nd. So they have a to-go pickup service. You can order books by phone, email, online, collect them at designated hours. Revere Library started on July 6th, offering curbside pickups 3 hours a day. You can call and email them for help. They have a grab-and-go selection of summer reading books for grades 1 to 8. East Boston Library is open 4 hours, offering whole pickups by appointment. Same deal with emailing or calling the librarian for help. They've also had children's storytime sessions live streamed. Medford Library has been open for no contact pickup and drop off since May 26. And Nahant Library has been open for hold pickups or delivery since May 27. These services that are offered by these nearby libraries fit in with the phase 2 of the library reopening plan. I went and found that on the library website in the trustees' minutes. So they have this opening plan from the May meeting. It was mentioned again in the June meeting that they would hope to open up in early July for pickup and drop off. And I know that the librarians have other things they could be doing at home or actually in the building, keeping at a very safe social distance in updating our materials, updating the database, archiving historical materials, all the stuff that gets put aside when the day-to-day running takes up so much of your time. We could actually get ahead on this, and also looking at grants where Winthrop might actually get some money. So I know they have other things to do, but I just want to focus on the service to the town because that's what impacts my family directly. And other libraries are already at phase 2. And we're talking about not even being ready for opening phase 1 yet. If the library isn't going to open for limited patronage until phase 4, there should be nothing preventing pick-up and drop-off services already being safely implemented, safely for the patrons and safely for the staff. We don't need plexiglass for that. We wouldn't need those service counter plexiglass until phase 4. So I want to just urge that the town has a need. In times of economic downturn, in times of trouble, libraries are utilized more heavily. So I feel like that we as a town could have been working a lot harder on prioritizing this to reopen in a limited fashion more quickly while maintaining a strong focus on safety. I just wanted to leave that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela, very much. And hopefully that is a step that we're coming up to with the curbside pickup. We've been talking about that. I've been talking to Austin about that for a week or two. Okay, who's next?
Donna, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hello?
Donna?
She's still on mute.
Oh.
There you go, Donna. You're good.
Do I hold the, I have to hold it.
Would that be Donna Segretti Riley?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. How well I recognize that voice.
Yeah, Pittsburgh. Won't get rid of it. At any rate, I just wanted to call in to, again, advocate for the creation of a Human Rights Commission, sometimes known as the Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations Committee. There were efforts, I think we all know, back in 2018, 2019, and for various reasons, things did not get off the ground relative to this kind of commission. I think the actual killing of George Floyd, for me personally, was what I called an in-your-face message of what hate and racism and violence has done in our country and in our world. And I supported town, and I continue to support Town Manager Faison in his urging for some real change in how we interact with one another. I do want to add, and this was not in my last email to you, because I know there was a letter to the editor this past Thursday that I wrote, and a missive to all of the council on June 16. But Town Manager Faison had two options. One was to make a statement that he did, and a lot of the community supports that. But the other was to say nothing. And I think, you know, the limited knowledge I have of Town Manager Faison is the fact that he felt a need to say something. And I personally am glad that he did. But I'm sure it was difficult, but it has had a positive ripple effect in the community in an effort to devise such a commission. I also want to point to the fact that there have been some positive efforts in the community relative to policing, and Chief Delahanty has organized the Restorative Justice Committee. Senator Joseph Boncory has spearheaded criminal justice reform at the State House, and District Attorney Rachel Rollins has outlined early efforts to reform the criminal justice system in Suffolk County. So I myself see a changing neighborhood here in the center area where I live. I make it a point to introduce myself to people and welcome them to the neighborhood. And I think it's this kind of exchange that really needs to happen. But I've also heard from other folks that it's not happening in that respect, and that there have been some threatening verbiage relative to don't rent to those people or else kind of thing. I myself witnessed in some political campaigns smashing of windows, which were reported to the police and aptly dealt with. But it's like people shouldn't be afraid to display their allegiances politically or culturally or otherwise. And that's what this commission is all about. And I don't want to be too redundant.
Thank you.
I do want to say, though, that Julia Wallers, Stephanie Recchia, and Sylvia Whiting had kind of already worked very hard on a mission statement that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, to get this off the ground, to ensure that we have respect in spite of differences of race, religion, gender, sexual identity, etc. So
Donna.
I thank you that this is on the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Donna, and it will be on the agenda. It will be sent to a committee, and we will be posting for applications to be on that committee. I know Austin has been working on a mission statement, and I think he has the one that they put together back a few years ago. So it will all go to the committee, and the committee will come up with the final draft for the next meeting. All right. Public comment, I see 6 hands up.
Yep, we have Suzanne Leonard, if you want to unmute your phone.
Yes, thank you.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to thank all of you, particularly those who've responded to my multiple emails, Town Manager Faison, Rob DeMarco, Phil Boncory. I know obviously you got my emails because you read my name, and also the library trustee manager, Rob.
Yes, I got them for both issues, library and
Yes.
human rights.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you for your responsiveness, all of you, and the fact that you're clearly listening to the town, and to see both of these issues getting such precedence tonight is really heartening. So really, I just want to thank you deeply and have you know how important these issues are to us. So I just really want to echo, I think, what Michaela said about the library, which is I really urge you to consider what sort of low contact curbside pickup could be possible without needing plexiglass, for example. I think Michaela spoke very eloquently about possibilities, and also things that other towns in our area are doing that are very forward thinking. So I'd hate to see Winthrop behind our sort of sister and brother communities right now. I do fear that there's a bit of bad press coming out about Winthrop and the way it's handling its library, particularly when, again, our adjacent neighborhoods are figuring out ways to do this. So I would just, number one, urge you to really think about how we could keep people safe, but also make limited library facilities available. And again, as Michaela said, there are ways to do this. And number two, I would just really like to voice my support for a Human Rights Commission. It sounds like this is on the table, but I think now more than ever in the society we live in, this is these priorities have become front and center, and I'm very pleased to see that the council is listening seriously to some of these issues. So again, I just want to thank you, but also impress upon you that both of these issues to me are very near and dear to my heart. And I will say this, and probably none of you have ever heard me speak or seen my name before about a week or two ago, but all of this has really said to me what important issues these are, and you'll be seeing more of me, and I hope in very positive and productive ways. So,
Susan, there are many committees that need help and need people to volunteer on them. And if you went on the website in town and filled out an application, I'd be happy to put you somewhere.
Thank you, President Boncory. You will see my name again. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, we
Next.
have Susan Martucci, sorry.
Hi, Suzanne. How are you?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, I had to stay on to get behind what Michaela and what Suzanne Leonard were saying. I had to show my support. I know a lot of people in the community echo those sentiments. So thank you guys very much for listening. I know you guys understand. So yeah, it seems very much feasible to have the library fully staffed right now for pickup and delivery services, streaming services, back office stuff. So thank you guys so much. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Is your shop open with books?
It is, yes.
And you have people coming in
I do,
to get
yeah.
books?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Great. We have Steve Dalton. Mr. Dalton, if you unmute your phone. Did you have public comment?
Steve, are you there? We have your letter about the library.
Okay.
You, okay.
Hello?
Hello, is that Steve?
Hello, yes, this is Stephen Dalton. Can you hear me?
Hi, Stephen. Yes, I can hear you, and we do have your letter about the library, but go ahead. What would you like to say?
Thank you very much. I'm sorry about the delay in the audio. My computer didn't tell me that it needed to restart the software until it was time for me to talk. Isn't that just like computers? This is going to sound strange, but I would like to know if I can ask a question, which I suppose is a question itself. Is it possible for me to ask a question, or is it only a time for comment?
No, it's time for public comment. It's not supposed to be a debate back and forth. But if you ask a question and one of us can answer for it, we'd be happy to.
Okay. A purely informational question. Since the library does not represent a revenue source for the town, I'd like to know how affordability is a consideration of its continued operation. So, for example, this very well may be the reason, but I don't know anything about the town finances. Has there been some sort of a budget shortfall due to decreased property taxes collected during the pandemic, or some other explanation? Or is it simply because the library is not, according to current reopening guidelines, that it's not safe? Could I get some clarity on that?
Ross, did you want to tackle that?
Sure. So during the entire budget process, we were investigating decreased revenues due to the impacts of the public health emergency. So we talked about that in a few different public meetings. We talked about it in the full council meeting, the second meeting in June, which was, I can't even think, June 20 something off the top of my head. I can't even remember, maybe the 17th. And then in May, we talked about it in the finance committee as well. So originally, we saw reductions in local receipts in terms of motor vehicle excise tax, food and meals tax, and those items. Some of the other revenue lines are things that we still think are potentially going to be impacted by that in fiscal 21. We also do not have confirmed numbers on what we are getting from state aid. So a few of the different revenue categories that we have in town have and will be affected by COVID-19. Anna, is there anything you'd like to add to that? Anna's the assistant town manager.
And chief financial officer.
Yes, thank you, Phil.
Okay. I hope that I can still make a comment in addition to a question. I promise I'll be brief.
Okay. You have another minute left. Go ahead.
Okay. Many people have mentioned that other libraries in the area are operating at least some limited capacity. I can't remember if there. No, wait. Somebody did mention the current reopening plan that's on the town website. It bears a stamp of May 2020, but it only became available on the town website in the past couple of days. So it does not really appear that the town is taking a very proactive approach to solving these problems. That seems to be more of a patch solution intended more to appease than to produce genuine and timely solutions. I took the liberty of perusing the town website and finding some budget numbers. The proposed 2021 budget on the town website claims that the library will require $593,000 in funding. The total town budget is $66 million. So this really, it comes to conclude that the library is small potatoes. It doesn't make sense to me that we cannot fund this. To compare, there is another category that is larger than the library, and it is the other category under government and administration. That has a budget of more than $800,000. Let me ask everyone present, is the library more important than other? More to the point,
I responded to you in your email concerning this topic. Other encompasses our IT services, our human resources department, many different things. I directly addressed your question concerning the prioritization of one department over another in an email. And again, this is something that's a little bit of a conversation for the budget creation process that we had over multiple months. publicly. So again, this is something that we appreciate your comment on it, but what you're saying right now, I directly responded to you about the question, your line of questioning right now.
Okay, well, please, I accept that. If you can allow me to move on. There was a ballot initiative in Winthrop in 2009 that permanently authorized the town to set property taxes at a level sufficient to fund the library to the tune of $499,000. Now, you'll notice that, of course, that's lower than the current proposed budget, but under no circumstances is it legal for the library's budget to drift anywhere below that $499,000 number. So I know that these are extraordinary times, but the law is still the law. And taking an aggressive approach to reopening the library as soon as possible is the smart
Stephen,
way.
you're actually incorrect on that. When you do an override, the money for the override is actually only allocated for the first year of a budgetary override. After that, it becomes part of the general fund, so it can be allocated as seen fit. So that was a ballot initiative for 1 year to be done in an override, and then going forward, it can be budgeted accordingly. So again, if there's a desire to pursue an override in town, that would be up for the community to decide that.
Well,
Thank you, Stephen. We're not going to get into a debate. If you have a comment, finish your comment up. We'll let you go over time already. Go ahead, Stephen.
All right, I suppose I have no further comment.
Okay, thank you very much for calling. I see that there are 3 hands up.
Yes, we have Julia. Julia, if you're still there and you want to unmute your phone.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Yeah, who's this? Julia.
Hi, this is Julia
How are
Wallers.
you?
I was just typing into the question that I've got to sign up. I have like 1 minute, so this will be super quick.
Did you get my message? Did you get my messages?
I did, and I owe you a call back. Thank you for that. I'm looking forward to the appointments section tonight so we can build out our committee, transportation committee, hopefully. Hold on, I'll be right in. Sorry, everybody. tight timing over here. I don't need to say much because I want to echo, what Michaela and Katrina and Steve and Suzanne, the comments that have already been made about the library, and really thank Austin for addressing these things. I know it's not easy by any means, and we know that these are going to be increasingly challenging budgetary conditions. That presentation last month said we're not just cutting into the meat, we're going to have to cut into the bone, and it's going to be hard. But I hope that the point has been made very clear about the value of the library, so much beyond books. And then I'm just so thrilled that, and I didn't know that the Human Rights Commission was after this meeting already going to be positioned for, appointments. That's just fantastic. As Donna mentioned, a few of us worked really hard on this a couple years ago, and maybe it just wasn't the right time. But if not now, I can't imagine when. So I really hope that you'll keep us as a resource, and that this is an opportunity for Winthrop to stand up, and to not just be a place that isn't racist, but that is anti-racist. And that's really what a committee like this can be. So thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to this progress and everything we can do to protect our library and the staff.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment? I see 2 hands.
I have Bob Carroll.
Hi, Bob.
Hello, Bob Carroll, Precinct 6. Nice to see you all, even virtually. That's great. I had the opportunity to sit in on the trustees meeting about a week ago and trying to understand the sort of internal mechanics of this. But I think you've had a lot of great folks come forward and explain the importance of the library. It wasn't too long ago in recent memory where folks were deciding to close the library to save money. But I'm happy to hear that that's not the reason this time. But I would say that that list of other communities nearby, it wasn't a list that included Lincoln and Wellesley. It was Nahant and Chelsea are somehow able to provide curbside. And I think at the very minimum, we need to come up with a plan to provide curbside immediately in this town. And it's not because I need a book. It's to offset what is all being called the digital divide. It's fine if you've got cable and Wi-Fi in your house and laptops for your kids, and you can, afford Disney Plus and watch Hamilton. Well, that's great. But unfortunately, not every member of this community can afford those things. And that's why that curbside is so important. It's for the least of us, not for all of us. And it's not extra. It's a bare minimum for our citizens. And so I think if, places like Boston that have a huge system and places like Nahant that have a small one, and everywhere in between and around us have figured out how to do it, I think there's no excuse to figuring out why we can't. And again, I'm just talking about curbside, no plexi, figure out a bookmobile, buy an ice cream truck and set it up in a parking lot, whatever. It shouldn't be too difficult. And then I guess the question I have is what do you want us as citizens to do? Is there anything that we can do to help the less fortunate in this community? Do you think if more content is online, would you like us to put a drive together to try to get Kindles or Kindle, whatever, into kids' hands? What do we need to do to make sure that the people you're telling not to go on the beach and to stay in their house have actually something to do while they're sitting in their house? So I want to try to be proactive and try to sort of be helpful. But if the town can somehow meet halfway with some curbside, and maybe it's not 2 employees, it's 3 or 4, I don't know what you'd need to do that. But anything that makes that bare minimum, saying that we have a sort of functioning library, I think would be critical right now at this time, especially because of COVID. With so many people losing their jobs, people rely on libraries to help them and get advice and just have somebody to talk to while they've been so isolated. So I thank you for your time, and I know you're working really hard during this difficult time. So I appreciate all your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And I want to point out, there is a Friends of the Winthrop Library Committee that has been in existence for many years. And, contacting the Friends of the Winthrop Library might be a way to help you get some activity going to help the library. But moving on, is there any other public comment?
Yes. Elizabeth Lessie? Elizabeth, are you still on for public comment?
Hello?
Okay, I'm going to move on to Manal. Manal Khan, you had your hand up for public comment?
Yes, this is Manal. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Hello. First of all, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Manal Khan. I live here in Winthrop, and I've been here for about 15 years. I am, not to put too fine a point on it, I'm one of the minorities in the town, but I'm also one of the privileged people who live over here. So like Bob Carroll said, I am able to, afford Netflix and books for my children. And so we're doing okay. But I also wanted to let you know that I wanted to voice my support for the library, the Human Rights Commission, because I also know how difficult it can be for people who do not speak English or who have trouble settling into a new place. And as you can tell, I'm speaking as an immigrant, but also we need the library because it's also a resource for people, again, who are part of the digital divide, as Bob Carroll said. So I just wanted to put my support out there for the library and the Human Rights Commission. And I also wanted to thank you for letting me speak and to just say thank you so much for thinking about all these topics and allowing us to share and voice our opinions on them.
Thank you very much, Manal.
Council President, there's 2 other callers on. They don't have the ability to raise their hand feature, so just
yes, go and ask them.
Just one moment. caller, do you have any public comment? Mr. Morgan, do you have any public comment?
No, I don't, Larissa. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
That's it, Council President.
Seeing no other public comment, there will be another session at the end of the meeting. We'll move over to committee reports, and I call on the Finance Committee first for a report. You're muted, Jim.
Thank you, Council President. The Finance Committee met earlier this evening. We had 3 topics of discussion. One was the budgetary transfers to close out fiscal 20, which I discussed in the public hearing, and we will be coming in old business with the unanimous recommendation to move that motion forward. The second was to discuss the fiscal policies that we've had in place, and just a discussion to begin a discussion on possibly adjusting those policies in some way, shape, or form. We have three reserve funds. We have the capital, we have the building, and we have stabilization. The building we limit to 300,000, and we use that pretty much on a yearly basis. The capital, we sometimes treat like a rainy day or stabilization fund, where we do put money in there, which is great, but we're a little reluctant in spending it. And I think it's important that we maybe more fund the general stabilization fund to show the state and any potential bonding agencies that we are actively pursuing ways to try to recoup the $750,000 that we took out, and possibly looking at a fiscal policy where we adjust the capital stabilization to have it at a fixed amount and to use it on a regular basis to maintain the assets that we have in town. So we had a discussion on that. We did not take any votes, and it's just a discussion that we will continue to have. The third item, I forgot right now. The
insurance.
The third item we discussed was the insurance, just to get a recap basically of the fiscal 21 budget since we had passed it. The town was in a situation where we were looking for a new insurer. That did come to fruition, and we were able to secure 2 insurers to cover our needs. The costs were pretty much in line with what the CFO had projected, slightly over, but not unmanageable, we don't believe. So we were very happy to hear that. And that was all that came out of that meeting this evening, Council President.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Terry. I would now like to move over to the Public Safety Committee. I guess you had a joint meeting with Transportation. Is that correct? Barbara, are you there? Hello,
Sorry,
Barbara?
Unmute. Yes, yes, I'm here. The Public Safety Committee met on the 23rd. There's a little delay, Council President, because I'm on DSL, where all you hotshots are on cable. Anyway, we met on the 23rd. Unfortunately, the Traffic Committee did not get word that they were invited to the meeting. However, Julia Wallace joined us, and Mike DeLuiso also joined us. And we met to discuss amendments to the motions that Rob DeMarco had initially put in place. There were several people that called in, and we had quite a discussion among the counselors that attended, and Julia and Mike. We ultimately decided to not restrict parking along the wall at Ural Beach. So we would start the restriction for town-wide parking stickers after the wall of Ural Beach. And we would not restrict it during church services on Saturdays and Sundays. Also, we would have placards made up for the people from the Point Shirley Association who rent out their space for events. So they would have placards to hand out for parking for their event time. They would have to keep track of them. We will put forth the motions later on in the meeting, but we were happy with the amendments that we came up with, and Julia and Mike were happy. Mike and Rob got together and put the wording together for the motion, and Denise put it into proper wording. So that's the result.
Okay, that's gonna come up under old business, the Point Shirley Parking Pilot Program. Thank you, Barbara. Rules and Ordinance and Economic Development, did you guys have a meeting, either Tracy or Peter?
Yep.
Who wants to start? Go ahead, Tracy.
I'll do it. So we met a couple of weeks ago. We met with Jeffrey Morrison Logan from VHB to discuss the logistics of the community workshop that's going to happen on July 14th. We're hoping as many people from the community can join us as possible. I'm glad to see that there's still 48 community members on, and I hope that they'll all attend the July 14th community workshop. We'll be discussing zoning in general, zoning implications. There'll be a survey, and we'll have an open community Q&A. So hopefully as many people that can attend will attend.
That'll be Zoom? That'll be a Zoom meeting?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good. Peter, anything to add? No, okay. Well, your next committee report is from the Ordinance Review Committee, and I had appointed 2 councils to that committee. Stephen, would you please give a report as to what's going on with that committee?
Yes, Council President. On Tuesday, June 30th, the Ordinance Review Committee kicked off, and we had our first meeting, thereby fulfilling our obligation to organize by July 1st per the charter. All committee members were in attendance. The meeting lasted about 45 minutes and consisted of just a general organizational conversation. The committee discussed 2 tasks that it must complete. One, of course, is the charter review, and 2 is the review of the town ordinances. It was agreed that the committee would begin with the more general, bigger picture topic, which is the charter, before getting into the weeds with a lot of the ordinances. The committee also discussed methods of soliciting feedback from the community, and we discussed our availability and agreed to meet multiple times over the course of the summer as to not fall behind on this important task. And in line with the charter, the review committee is committed to presenting recommendations to the council by May 2021. So there's a long way to go, but like I said, we have 4 meetings scheduled out this summer, and we're ready to go. So.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Jury, and thank that committee for me for getting the ball rolling. Okay, town manager's report.
Sure. So thank you very much. And I appreciate all the input from the community concerning the library. Also want to note the senior center is also something that's of the utmost importance to us. And we're also looking forward to figuring out how to reopen that building. Circling back on Councilor Ruggiero and the Charter Review and Ordinance Review Committee. The town was selected for a community compact grant from the state concerning the review of our charter for $18,000 to work with the Collins Center on this. We are actually the first community in Massachusetts to be awarded a community compact grant in the other category for specifically charter review. So we may potentially be setting up best practices for charter review and ordinance review for the rest of the state. So it's a really cool opportunity for the town to really get down to business on this topic. If this is the time to really contemplate change in the charter and the ordinances, if the community is willing to do that, because you'll have the support of the community, the Collins Center, as well as KP Law. So pretty exciting stuff. Just to reiterate, Councillor Christopher and Councillor Honan, we are very excited about kind of moving forward with the middle school redevelopment. This meeting on the 14th is very important to have continued community input on this topic. They're going to be circling back on some of the items about 141 and 151 Pauline Street, but ultimately we're looking to get to a point where we are zoning that site. So we're putting it out to bid so that it can be turned into something rather than a vacant building. So I really thank this joint subcommittee and the progress that they're making. I know that they are circling back on some previous decisions that were made just to ensure that they were made the right way, but we are continuing to make progress towards the ultimate goal of putting that site or those sites out to bid with some certain ramifications around them, and hopefully some or some type of new zoning for the sites involved. Those are the two major items. Also, I've kind of been doing this most meetings, but really just thanking my staff for helping out during these super precarious times, and the community for being accommodating for this. I know that, like Councillor Boncory, talked about the beaches earlier, and the number of people on the beaches. We're going to have some of the Massport younger workers out on the beaches distributing literature in the near future for everyone that comes to the beach. Not that we want to necessarily give people something in their hand that they then throw on the ground and litter, but really to set the rules and set the tone of what we're looking for in our open spaces. We know that everyone is a social animal and people want to be together. We just want people to be together safely. So again, safety is of the utmost importance in everything that we're doing. So we are always being guided by safety on these things. With that, Meredith, could you unmute yourself and just give the community a quick update? I know we haven't been able to kind of hear from you in a few weeks. So if you could unmute yourself and just give a quick update, I would appreciate that.
Sure. So just to give you guys an update, everybody I'm sure is well aware that on Monday we moved into phase 3 of the governor's plan. It's a lot with this plan. I think that we're going to be in phase 3 for extended amount of time. Some big things that have come out of it is increased retail space, increased capacity within retail space and opening of dressing rooms. Fitness centers were able to open with inside classes, and athletics. So inter-team athletics, youth sports, group sports based on, so DPH grouped the sports based on a level of contact and risk. And it's good to know, though, that these guidelines are currently for summer rec sports, and we anticipate that there's going to be separate guidance coming for K-12 sports in the fall. It could be the same. It could be a little bit different. As Superintendent Howard and her team is working diligently to come up with their plans for the fall, which is a huge task. It's overwhelming to put through the documents that they're trying to put together. And it's changing. Like one thing that I know on DPH's side that's being really debated is the idea of an isolation room, and whether there's the capacity of every single municipality in the state to make room within every school for isolation, and how to be creative in following those guidelines without necessarily trying to carve out separate space. Entertainment is now allowed in phase 3 with significant distancing between entertainers and patrons. For about, there needs to be at least 25 feet between entertainers and patrons. So those are the kind of the big things that came out of phase 3 reopening. It seems as though the governor is not going to be moving towards a phase 4 reopening without vaccinations available or solid treatments. So that's why I'm saying that I expect that we're going to be here for a bit of time. We're also working on our planning for flu clinics, which will be here sooner than later. What that's going to look like, I do think that we're going to have more people interested in getting flu vaccines from the town this year. So I have a group of interns and we're working on a series of plans based on where we're at with our data at that point so that we can execute it efficiently. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with phase 3. It's always, yeah, I understand what the governor's doing, not releasing the guidelines until right before they start, but it's definitely a struggle to get the guidelines. The sports guidelines just came out yesterday afternoon at about 3 o'clock, and by 4 o'clock we had Little League games going. So there's not a lot of time to ramp things up, and the businesses have done a phenomenal job. Parks and Recs has done an amazing job getting their plans in place, really digging in and taking ownership on how to do it. So I have to really commend all of the community organizations and the departments for, it's a lot of work, and they're doing a great job with it.
Great.
Thank you very
much. Thanks, Meredith. Just briefly, again, safety is the utmost importance. We're trying to follow the guidance from the state. When you look at the map of the country right now, our state, with only a couple other of our neighbors, are the only ones with decreasing numbers in the entire country. So it is very important that we continue to follow the guidelines that are coming down and not kind of going it alone on some of these things. Also of note, in the finance committee, we discussed the new insurance policy that the town has, that luckily the town was able to continue our insurance, and that comes with an additional cost. And we extended the solid waste contract, so there will be additional discussions concerning the implementation of most likely a dual stream recycling solution and dissemination of solid waste bins community-wide, and some other matters with that. So that's something we're going to be working on this fall of how to best deploy that in the April-May region of the year. Beyond that, multiple people have inquired with my office about signage in the Center Business District concerning the temporary parking lot in French Square. And I was just working on the imaging for that signage, and we should have signage up there, I would say most likely next week. I was just trying to get the correct imaging of what the landscape architect had come up with and what the kind of new designed French Square will look like in the future, so that it will be correctly represented. But that's something that will be up as well in the very near future. And hopefully we get a grant from the state about some of these safe traffic calming type of things. We applied for some wayfinding in town, some parklets and things like that. So there's potentially some cool stuff coming down from the state if we are awarded a grant for that as well. So some still exciting things going on during this time, even though certain things have been ramped down. And with that, thanks for the time, Council President.
Thank you, Town Manager. Does any councilor have any questions for the Town Manager?
Yes, Council President.
Council President.
Okay, one at a time. Councilor Farino, I heard your name first.
Yes, Austin, how you doing?
Good.
I just wanted to circle back to the middle school, and I attended a couple of those meetings with the Rules and Ordinance and Economic Development. And one of the reasons we seemed to hire this gentleman was to establish the footprint of the building, to have it properly surveyed, and also to establish clairvoyance in the Article 97 issue. And I didn't seem to get any indication that he's been leaning toward this issue or even addressing these. And maybe he has. He said he was going to have a conversation with you and Ms. Quest. And so I just wanted to make sure he's prepared at that meeting on the 14th to answer those questions, because I don't think we're going to move forward if those questions aren't answered.
So many of those questions have been answered previously. I just sent over to Council Christopher and Councilor Honan information today concerning some of the legal opinions going back to 2017 concerning 141 and 151 Pauline Street and the potential implications of Article 97 on that, which there are little. So many of those legal opinions have already been expressed. I was just cleaning off some of those. And VHB has really been brought on board to help us prepare language to vote on the zoning of the site. It was not necessarily about the surveillance. They are a planning company. They are not an engineering firm or a legal firm. So they were solely tasked with helping the joint subcommittee help the community get to the point that we have the building or the site rezoned so that we can eventually put it out to bid.
Yes, and those opinions have been around for, as you said, 6 and 7 years, and quite a few people that I've spoken to legally and concerned citizens have disputed a lot of those findings and found different things where they're not explained to the extent that they were satisfied. So I would like maybe to have, if we could, at that meeting, someone from K&P that could, in layman's terms, explain
KP will be there. Robin Stein will be there. That said, it will continue to echo the opinion that was sent to the town on January 13th, 2016, which is on the town website concerning it's the legal opinion of the title review by Vicky Marsh, and it explains the thoughts on that site. So KP will be there again to discuss this. But again, the zoning of that site is the priority in the subcommittee, not necessarily the lines of the property.
Well, I think it would be advantageous to the council and yourself and the community that maybe people can put some questions in writing prior to that meeting so that they maybe be able to have them prepared for that meeting and can answer some of those questions, because I'm still getting the same questions from a lot of concerns and people about, you know, the loophole, the unclear message that KMP and prior town manager wrote in their opinions about that parcel. So I won't take any more of your time, but I think it's just a suggestion.
Now, is it about 141 or 151?
Both. And not the middle school site, the other two parcels, the Memorial Auditorium and the gymnasium.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Austin.
Thank you, Rich. This is a major project that has to get done, and the sooner the better. And I hope this committee gets to work and gets us an answer, because that building cannot stay unzoned any longer. We need to move it forward.
President Boncory. President Boncory.
Marco, questions for the town manager? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I want to echo Councilor Farino's comments. And the only reason I bring it up, and obviously, Council President Boncory, you're correct. We have to move that site forward. We have to do something yesterday, not tomorrow. But it's just that, Town Manager Austin, I remember even you saying, I remember, I believe it was somebody got up at a town council meeting and said there was an issue with Article 97. And even you said at that point that, you know what, it was Jack Dowd, actually. You were like, Jack Dowd has some legitimate concerns regarding Article 97. Well, I've only been on the council for a year, less than a year. So this is way before the 2016 legal opinion that was issued. So just first off, Tracy and Pete, can you forward me those legal opinions? I'd like to see them personally. And, I want to get this done. We all want to get it done. I just want to make sure we get it done right. So, let's just make sure I think the best way forward is for them to address Article 97 and the property lines, and then we can move forward.
Okay.
Hey, thank you, Rob. Anyone else?
Council President?
Yes, Council Terry.
Thank you. Thank you, Town Manager. I have three things. One is just a comment on the library. I think it's pertinent, and I couldn't agree more with the Council President that we need to open the library up to, at minimal, outside pickup and whatever services we can. The budget was just made, just started less than a week ago. That library was fully funded in the budget. We know there might be shortfalls in other areas, but I don't think we could. I'm hoping that this closure right now, or temporary closure, is more due to the pandemic than it is to finances. I do hope that, and I know the people at the library are incredibly intelligent people, and I'm sure that they would be able to help you in a plan to promote at least minimal services as quickly as possible. And I just ask that as a counselor. My second thought is on Miller Field. And again, we're already into July. I am hoping that there is a plan put in place. And if there is already, I apologize, but when will that be open for citizens to go out there and use that for the older population to go out and walk around, or whatever it happens?
It's just it's the staffing of the Massport workers working in conjunction with Larissa from my office. It's going to be open during early hours again, just like last
We have
year.
a date when that will be beginning.
Not off the top of my head right now, but I'll confirm that date.
All right, because we're already past the 4th. And my last thing is on the Center Business Project. I want to thank Steve and for his guidance on this, and Gioso, I think, has done an incredible job in a lot of areas. I do have a few concerns. One, I'm there very early in the morning. I noticed that even some of their employees are parking in the French Square lot, the temporary lot. That lot was an incredible idea, whoever had it, and I applaud it, but that lot is full at 8:30 in the morning, and there's barely a space to be found. So, we need to tell Gioso that they cannot be parking in that lot. We also was told at the senior center that this project would not be on multiple streets at once. Today, I know coming down Somerset at a point, you could not get into the center. You couldn't get down Woodside Ave from CVS, and you couldn't get down Woodside Ave from Pleasant Street. That's 3 streets. I know, and I do think they're doing a great job. I applaud them, but we have to be a little more aware of the citizens and their uses. And my last thing on Gioso is we need to hold them accountable for where they're storing their vehicles. I understand that the rink is closed right now, but hopefully it will be open within 6 weeks. But even regardless of that, their plan was to use a fenced-in area to the right of the rink. That whole property is totally inundated, including the sidewalks. And I know behind the middle school, there has been material left out that shouldn't be there in the wrong places. They're using all the way down the street leading out to Brookfield Road. And I think we have to rein them in a little bit because they have to understand the parameters that were given to them. But I do applaud them for the work they're doing. I think they're doing a good job. But, they have to be cognizant of the citizens of this town, and they have to be cognizant of the plan that was agreed to in terms of parking and storing their vehicles.
So in terms of parking and storing of the vehicles, I can work on that. Concerning the streets that they're working on, you were talking about Woodside, right?
They're working on multiple ends of Wood. Now, I thought, again, at the beginning of the project that they were going to do
It's one phase at a time. It's not one street at a time. It's only one phase.
That.
So I think this is phase 4.
I understand that, but when it was originally described to us, they were going to be doing Woodside Ave, let's say from CVS into the center, and they were going to be doing sewer, water, and drainage. And now it's 3 separate projects for each street. It is my understanding from talking to them.
So in phase 4, it's Woodside Ave, French Square to Pleasant Street, Adams Street, William Street, and Bartlett Road. French Square to Pleasant Street.
Yes, but when it was described to us, they said that they were going to do water sewer and drain from Woodside into the center, and then they only did drainage, and then they're going to come back now and do, or they only did sewer, then they coming back and do drainage, then they come back and do water.
Can we finish
but
this
to have-
conversation in private?
Yeah, we can, but I think it's extremely important that there's access, and I think the town is doing a pretty good job in maintaining as good access as possible, but to have, like today, you couldn't get through Somerset into the center. You couldn't get it. The only way you could get into the center for one period of time today was from coming down Jefferson into the center through that area. And it's difficult.
I came down Pauline and then down Putnam and right into the center.
Pauline to Putnam. Yeah,
Putnam,
from Putnam,
and then into the
Jefferson.
center.
From Jefferson. Right, that was the only way to get into the center today. And the parking is extremely important at that French Square lot. So I just ask that they be looked into and be cognizant of the patrons that are coming down to the center, that they have an adequate place to park.
Okay. Anyone else have a question for Councilor Christopher?
Yes, President.
I recognize Councilor Christopher first, Barbara. Barbara.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, I'd heard from a lot of people about the library, and I know it's easy for a lot of people on the council to say, you know, it's not our job to work with, to try to oversee town operations and everything. And it's easy for us to sort of say that. But I think it's a time right now where a lot of different communities across the state are looking into different things that they value and how their budget represents it. And Winthrop should also be a community that goes through this process. And I hope that when we're, I know that what we're trying, there could be some savings as a result of these library furloughs and the senior center furloughs. And I just want to say that I'm committed to making sure that we keep these funds in social services and making sure that we may at least maintain whatever level of service that we have throughout the year. Because I think a lot of times the first place we go to when we need to make cuts is to the schools, the library, and those are always the first things. And I want to make sure that we're looking at these cuts and that the cuts that are made to social services are not disproportionate to other parts of the community. Those are things that I take very seriously, and I think that we should work as a council to make sure that our budget represents those values that I know we all have in this community. So I just wanted to say that I hear everybody in your emails, and that's how I feel about this. And I would be very skeptical of taking those funds away from the library as we appropriated them in this year's budget.
Thank you. And I want to congratulate Councilor Christopher on becoming a father this past week to a beautiful little boy, 7 pounds, 5 ounces. His name Gerald. And Christopher, and to his wife Laura. Congratulations, Peter. See the whole new perspective about you thinking about the future of this town for your child.
Yeah, the story somehow is really something that I just really hit home. You know, I wanted to make sure that those services were there.
Thank you, Peter. All right. Did anyone else have a question for the town manager?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, Barbara. Glad you were waiting.
President Boncourt. Yes. I just wanted to echo on behalf of everybody that's spoken, but especially the senior citizens, that drop off and pick up at the library would be very important. I'm in a position to have been buying books during this period when the library was closed, but it's been an expensive proposition and everybody's not in that position. So I think we should work really hard at getting some drop off and pick up. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. All right, moving on, the school committee report. School committee did not meet this past week, but the subcommittees have been meeting, dealing with the budget and other situations for the school department. Our superintendent has been working diligently trying to follow the governor's edict as to when school is opening. I know she's been working closely with Meredith and our health director to make sure that when it does open, we're going to be open safely. And they are working day and night with the governor's proposals and the State Department of Education proposals, and they will have this figured out in time to open, I hope, in September. All right, I will give you a further update after the next meeting, which is in a week or two. All right, moving on to old business. First item of business on old business is polling locations, and I believe our town clerk, Carla Vitale, is on. Unmute yourself. Do you want to discuss this issue? Do you want me to read the memo that came in from May 13th? I think everybody has seen that. I think it was mentioned back then.
Sure. Well, good night. Good night to everyone. Happy to be here. I think what was on the agenda was we were talking about the possibility of changing the polling locations here in town.
Yeah, someone had made that motion or brought that up for discussion back. I think it was Councilor Terry. I don't know if we're still talking about that, but that was brought up and it's been carried over because we didn't finalize it. It did not come in the form of a motion. It was an open discussion on polling places. Jim, do you want to be heard on that again? Yes, you're muted, Jim.
It was an open discussion that I had brought up. I do think it's important that we take a look at it. I know it's also difficult that we're kind of blindsided by what sort of conditions we're going to be under come November. But this has led to other discussions about the election in general, along with the polling location and early voting and how it's going to impact the clerk's office. But I would like to give Carla a few minutes here to, I think on the polling locations, I don't think my understanding is she's not 100% ready to make a suggestion on that one way or the other. But I think it's important that we hear about her in terms of the election in general and things that we're going to have to think about and decide in a relatively short order. If Carla would like to speak on that.
If Carla's prepared to, I know that some orders just came down from the state as to polling actually today, right?
Yep.
Yes. So a couple of different things. I sent an email, I think, late in the afternoon today to you folks, mainly regarding the polling locations. So I would maintain that we don't, or that we shouldn't be changing the polling locations, mainly because there's not really any other identifiable space where we could have the elections. If there was, we'd be using it. Quickly, the Golden Drive does not want to change in Precinct 4. They've made that very clear. But then that leaves us the Cummings School and the high school. Obviously, Superintendent Howard has concerns, which is rightfully so, and I understand that. So I would propose, if we're not going to open the library and the senior center, and that's something you want to utilize, we should make that decision sooner rather than later. Alternatively, we can decide to keep the polling locations in the schools where they are and just contract now with an outside cleaning company to go in at 10 o'clock at night on election night, or our own DPW custodial staff to go in after the election to make sure that the buildings are clean for the children the next morning. But I think that decision has to be made in July. The sooner the better. So that's one thing. The other thing about elections that is worth mentioning tonight, there's been a couple of emails about needing back office help from August through November. I really need assurances that we have an appropriation for that. To your point, Council President, the regulations were signed last night, although the guidance and the real meat of it hasn't come out yet. I'm sure it'll come out in the next few weeks. But mainly, mail-in voting is going to be where it's at. So we're going to be looking at thousands of pieces of mail for September and November, as well as absentee ballots, which the ballots should be in the next 2 weeks. So we're going to have a lot of back office work that needs to be done. And I definitely will need some temporary help to manage that. Alongside of that, I'm concerned a little bit about whether or not the building will be open to the public by the end of this month. And if not, how will we handle absentee ballot voting at town hall. So some of the suggestions I've proposed are, can we do a build out of the Harvey room where we have an awning or a kiosk, something that allows my staff to safely take care of residents voting, but still have, you know, weather protection, because if it rains, we're going to need to make sure that the integrity of the ballots is safe. So we need to put those plans in place now rather than later. We have tentatively scheduled to have a drop box purchased, and I hope put out on Herman Street. That will be a drop box specifically for ballots, which will make it easier for my office and for the residents to drive up and put their ballots in a designated box, which is a good thing. But that's only really one piece of the pie. I know that Austin and Anna have been carefully watching the CARES Act and to see if some funding is going to come down to help us with all these different initiatives. But I think that we really can't wait. The time is now. And I'm a little bit concerned. I just want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can in a timely fashion so we're not under the gun. I know the election is, you know, September 1st, but really it starts in about 2 weeks.
Okay. When are the ballots available?
They should be available in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, and that's when you start the absentees and the mail-ins will all start at that time.
Exactly. And currently, I mean, we're still seeing people every day right now for regular business outside. And we've been very lucky. The weather is sunny and we do the best we can. But we really need to have a more dedicated plan as to how we're going to take care of the volume of people that will be showing up in the next 3 weeks.
Okay. We have to work something out between you, Austin, and facilities, and let's see if we can get something going quickly.
Yeah, I'm happy to take any questions.
Anybody have questions for Carl?
Council President?
Yes.
I would encourage, you know, we have one more meeting in the month of September, month of July. And I think it's, July. I know we have one more meeting in the month of July, and I think it's pertinent that we have something ready to discuss at that meeting and potentially, you know, give the council clerk some direction and some assurities that things will be taken care of. I'm sure early voting is going to be an issue, like Carla said, along with, you know, absentee ballots. And like everything else, people tend to wait till the last minute on a lot of things, and it's going to be inundated for her and her staff. So I think it's something that we can't, you know, we can't put off, and we need to be prepared to discuss this at a July 21st meeting.
Yeah, and the polling locations is only one part of that, but any part of this election season that I can move off the table would make me feel more confident. Knowing where we're going to vote really helps me plan. So we really need to deal with that issue as well.
What are the possibilities that are on the table right now? I guess I just don't understand what the motivation is behind this potential change. Is there a reason why we think one site might be less safe than another as it is currently? Because otherwise I think it does get confusing when we have different polling locations in all these different elections.
I think that the polling locations have got to stay the same. And I think we should just tell that to Carla up front. Let's stay where we are. The problem was we didn't know whether or not the schools would be open in September, if we were going to be able to use them and be able to get them sanitized. But we're going to have them sanitized if they're going to vote there. I think what she's more concerned about is the new substances that are coming out with the mail-in ballots and the absentee ballot influx, because people don't want to come into the polling place, that we need a designated place for her to have a lockbox where she can collect votes. Is that right, Carla?
Well, it's multifaceted. So first, my recommendation would be that we keep the polling locations where they currently are, which is in the schools and on Golden Drive. To Council Christopher's point, it is confusing when we move locations, and there is a small cost as well, which, you know, isn't really a driving factor, but we are trying to be conservative with our costs. So we're going to have to clean the building no matter what building we use. So the safest buildings, in my opinion, and the easiest for the voters are the ones that they already know, the schools. So it would be my recommendation that we keep the voting locations as they are. And then that's one section or one portion of this process we don't have to worry about. But, you know, obviously we do have to clean them and there's an expense to that. And I can work with facilities and Anna and Austin to figure that out. So that would be the one thing. The next thing is the back office help, making sure that I have the ability to hire someone from August to November and have the funds available to do that. The third thing, and probably the thing that I need to take action on the quickest and will need the most help from facilities, because it's just not my wheelhouse, is the appropriate place for a build out, whether that's a kiosk or an awning off the Harvey Room. I need Rich or Steve Calla to help me figure out what's the best thing to do. And then I need to take action immediately to get that up and running. So those are kind of the three big things that I would like to have figured out in the next 3 weeks.
So I can speak to a couple of those. Carla, I totally agree with you at the Harvey Room. I think just determining how we're going to best build that out is kind of one of our next action items that we're going to be working on. In terms of like Councilor Christopher, when you ask like what can we do and what should we be looking to do, my biggest thing is people should be looking to figure out how to vote from home, vote by mail, absentee ballots, things like that. I know that it does leave our town clerk's office with the back end of that means that her office gets a piece of mail and then has to enter the ballot in manually, still through the same Scantron that needs to be ballot needs to go through in a normal voting in person process. But in terms of that, Carla's office being able to manage the increased influx on this, we do think that this is something that CARES Act money would be applicable towards. We wouldn't necessarily be openly advocating for everyone to vote by mail or vote from home if we weren't in the current state of affairs. So it's something that we are exploring and trying to best figure out. But the build out of the Harvey Room is something that's completely on the table that we think will be going forward, helping Carla have a dedicated space to be able to properly handle all of the ballots that do come in by mail, specifically for the September primary. That is, I mean, we have a Senate primary, so the numbers should be decent in that. Is the priority election right now, and then figuring out how we're going to have things in place for November as well. So Carla, to her credit, has been doing a fair amount of planning on this already, and she's been asking the appropriate questions. So we're going to figure out how to help her proceed forward. But the build out in the Harvey Room is coming, and then just really figuring out what we're going to try to do with absentee ballots to make sure that her office can continue to function correctly.
Yes. I'm very certain. I think there's two ways to go with this. First of all, I think we should pass a motion to leave the polling places exactly where they are, and I would entertain that motion at the present time. Then there is an issue as to whether or not we need a money transfer, but I think we need to wait till we see what the CARES Act does on that situation, because she is going to need temporary help in there. And thirdly, I think our town manager and the facilities manager and DPW can get together and figure out where we could put this actual depository for where the ballots are going to come into. But I think we take them one step at a time. And I think the first thing is to say that we're leaving the polling places where they are. And I think if we need a motion to do that, I would entertain that motion now.
I would make a motion that we maintain current polling locations for fiscal year 21.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Carla, is that something you would recommend?
Yes, I would definitely, it would be my recommendation that we leave them as they are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, would you please take a roll call, Denise?
Councilor Ruggiero?
Yes.
Councilor Flockhart?
Yes.
Councilor DeMarco?
Yes.
Councilor Christopher?
Yes.
Councilor Honan?
Yes.
Councilor Conti?
Yes.
Councilor Farino?
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri?
Yes.
President Boncory?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion
Okay.
passes.
Okay, and I think we should put on the next ballot, the next agenda, any question about financial resources? So we get a motion as to what you think you're gonna need, Carla, and we can get it to Finance Committee so that we can vote on that at our next meeting in July. And hopefully by that time, we'll have an answer as to what we're doing with the
one thing with that is that we don't need to do the transfer until we've incurred some of the costs. So we don't necessarily need that for the next meeting. We're going to figure out how to best help Carla and allocate the funds for it. We don't necessarily need to move the money beforehand with that.
All right, as long as we're aware that she needs that and that we're working towards making sure that her three necessities are filled. Okay,
Absolutely.
Yes, Barbara. Barbara, go ahead.
All right, my read of what Secretary Galvin said was that first, if we're going to be doing this voting by mail, an application is going to have to go out to all the voters so that they can fill out the application in order to get the ballot, which means this is going to start a lot earlier than when we would think that ballots would be going out. We can't put this off a long time. It's going to happen in a couple of weeks.
Yes, thank you, Barbara. You're absolutely right. So last night, as I understand it, the regulations came out, and basically the state is going to mail every voter in the Commonwealth, I believe, a voter registration card along with a vote by mail card. So those will be hitting mailboxes soon. To your point, this will all be coming in probably in the next 2 weeks. So I'm appreciative that you folks voted to keep the polling locations where they are. Thank you. That's one thing off my docket. That's great. I would ask that we commit to having a build-out plan in place prior to your next meeting so that you folks can see, or if it needs to have a budget, or that I can be confident that at the council's next meeting at the end of this month, Facilities and I will have worked on a build out, and there's a plan in place, both a budget and a timeline, because I know Facilities is so busy with helping all our offices get up and running. And I don't want to presume that my office takes precedent over another. That's not at all what I'm saying. I just need to know where we are and when it will be happening. And I think it needs to happen at your next meeting. So I was wondering if we can commit to that tonight. And then lastly, thank you, Austin, for filling me in about the temporary help. Because election help is difficult to find because it's specialized, I'm going to go in and make a plan with Maureen DePiero, the former election commissioner in Everett, who worked with us for a short time and retired, and secure her while I can, because folks that know stuff about elections and that are able to do election work are quickly getting snapped up by communities all over the Commonwealth, just like ours, who know that they're going to need help. And I don't want to lose out on such a valuable resource. So I'll be contacting Maureen tomorrow, letting her know that, you know, we have your support and that she can plan on joining us, you know, for a period of hours, which I will discuss with you, but at least let her know that we are welcoming her in August and that she'll be able to join us temporarily. Is that something that we can commit to tonight?
Sure. Yeah, we can go forward with that. And then in terms of the build out of the building, that's not something that needs to be discussed in the council meeting. We can handle that internally as well.
I agree. Great. I just want, under old business on the next next week's agenda, or 2 weeks from now, that we have under old business elections, so we get an update and know what's going on with those other two issues. Okay, beside the polling place.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Carl. Thank you for being with us. Old business, town council vote to modify the general fund budgets to facilitate the June 30th, 2020 closing. Vice President Lettieri.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that the town council vote to modify the following general fund budgets to facilitate the June 30th, 2020 closing of the fiscal 2020 budget or take any other action relative thereto. There are several funding sources, which I will read, and then several funding destination for these sources. So where the money will be coming from: reserve fund appropriations, $35,900. Northeast Regional Vocational School, $13,313. Payments to veterans, $47,893.23. Work order systems,
That was
$2,100.
amended. Is that one of the ones that was amended? Because my shows 40,000. You said 47?
Yes, yes.
That was amended.
$2,180 work order systems. Cemetery personnel, $10,000. Legal services town attorney, $20,000. DPW building maintenance personnel, $70,000. Grants personnel, $15,000. GIC town, $10,000. GIC retiree, $55,000. GIC schools, $100,000.
Are those also?
Yes, they've been amended. Conservation Commission personnel, $13,085.44. DPW personnel, $15,000. Fiscal 20 legal judgment settlement, $61,028.13. Regional dispatch, $61,076.64. That is the funding sources to fund these following budgetary shortfalls to square the budget. Police personnel retro, $35,900. Essex Agricultural School, $32,374. Town audit, $15,660. Fiscal
Can I
year.
just hold you for 1 minute? Was that 374 or 347?
347.
Okay.
32,347. I'm sorry. Fiscal year 14 receivership derelict properties, 67,182.24. That is an increase. New school interest, 2 cents. Internal audit for the town council, $10,000. Legal services in the town manager's office, $30,000. Consulting, A&F, $10,000. Election personnel, $10,848. Snow and ice manpower, $33,856.22. Snow removal supplies, $43,684.96. Property insurance, $45,000. Charter school, $40,000. Police personnel, $90,000. Fire personnel, $65,000 for a total of $529,478.44. These are yearly, not the exact same line items, but this is a yearly procedure to make sure all the books and the budget is balanced.
Okay.
That did come out
Motion
of
has been
committee.
made. It came out of committee. Doesn't need a second. It came out with a positive recommendation. Is there any discussion on this by the councilors? Any discussion? Hearing none. I'll take a roll call vote, please, Denise.
Counsel Ruggiero,
Yes.
Counsel Flockhart,
Yes.
Counsel DeMarco,
Yes.
Counsel Christopher, Counsel Honan,
Yes.
Counsel Conti,
Yes.
Counsel Farino,
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri,
Yes.
President Boncory,
Yes.
motion passes.
Motion carries. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Point Shirley Parking Pilot Program, and that was in committee to Public Safety. Is Public Safety bringing this motion forward, or is Mr. DeMarco bringing this motion forward?
Public safety is,
Okay, you want to read your motion then?
yes. That the motion is that the Winthrop Town Council amend Chapter 10.40 of the Town Ordinances by adding the section below. If passed, the police department is requested to take appropriate enforcement action to ensure both adherence to the law and collection of data to determine the success of the pilot, as well as monitor the conditions in the Cottage Hill neighborhood for any adverse effect due to this action. If passed, a sufficient number of business placards as authorized by Section 10.48.080B of the Town Ordinances will be issued to the Point Shirley Association for the use of the patrons to their facility located at 1032 Shirley Street. 10.48.095 Point Shirley Pilot Program, effective July 10, 2020 through September 7, 2020, notwithstanding provisions elsewhere in this ordinance. A resident permit or valid placard will be required at all times in order to park on the following public roadways or portions thereof: Bayview Avenue, excluding the angle parking, adjacent to Coughlin Park; Elliott Street, Grandview Avenue, Hale Avenue, Maryland Avenue, Otis Street, Pebble Avenue; Shirley Street from Petrel Street to its southern terminus; Siren Street, Taft Avenue, Townsend Street, Triton Avenue, Undine Avenue, Whittier Street. Areas posted: no parking except for Saturday and Sunday church services, shall be exempt from the permit requirement from 1 hour before scheduled church services to 1 hour after the services end. Violation of this section shall be punishable by fine as prescribed in Chapter 10.32 of the Town Ordinances. Commercial vehicles are subject to the provisions of Section 10.16.040 of the Town Ordinances. That's the motion.
Okay, that came out of committee. I guess it doesn't need a second as well. Is there any discussion on this? Before we get into the discussion, is this list of streets every street that is a public way in Point Shirley? Because I don't see Pratt Street. Okay, go ahead.
So the whole point before it was we essentially added the beach wall, and Mike Delwiso, and I think he's actually on this call. He might be able to help us with some of the terminology. But the whole point was to put it from the end of the beach wall on Ural Beach forward. So essentially, where originally we had the cutoff be the landing, it is now the end of the beach wall on Ural where the houses start on the beach side.
I understand that, but it goes all the way then up to MWRA, correct?
That's my
goes all the way up
understanding.
to Well, I see streets that are missing, like Pratt Avenue, the Strand, and certain other streets, Brewster Ave. So,
Mike, you
is there
here?
a reason?
I am here, sir, if I'd be permitted to speak. Those streets are actually on the town's list of private ways, so they were excluded from this list on purpose.
Okay, so every public street is listed here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Anybody else have any questions?
I got a question.
Go ahead.
So this is a pilot program. How are we going to determine if it's successful or not successful? Is there some kind of mechanism that we're going to be monitoring this ban?
Yes. Chief Delahanty has already sent out a report on the traffic in the area, telling us how it's going.
So it's just going to be monitored by the police.
And also, I think Mike will have a hand in that as well.
The parking tickets. That will be the parking tickets that Mike will be processing.
Okay. Councilor Conti, this is your precinct. Do you have anything to say about it?
Yes, I do. This is something that's very important to my neighborhood. As other communities have moved to restrict parking in their neighborhoods, there's been a lot of traffic and cars down here. And I can personally attest that it's much busier than usual. Every weekend sort of feels like the 4th of July down here. I think that this pilot program absolutely makes sense. And if areas like Nahant and East Boston and Brookline and Cambridge are good enough to have resident parking, I think that the Point is good enough to have it as well.
Okay, any other discussion?
Can I say something, President Boncory?
Yes.
We originally put this forward, and we had some support for it, but we also got some pushback for it. And I think we did a good job as a committee and under Barbara's leadership, listening to a lot of the complaints and amending the pilot program that would be inclusive to everybody. I mean, right now we have a system that's going to protect. I think this pilot program is going to show that we can protect resident parking and make that available, while at the same time having a very inclusive beach where, for this year anyway, you can park at the landing or you can park in front of the beach wall, and it is free. There aren't many beaches run by towns that I know of that have that kind of, that you can go there and it's free. So I think we protect the public parking and we have an inclusive beach. And I think it's not a perfect situation. I don't think any pilot is, but I think the data that we get will help us in the next couple of years come up with a system that will be as good as possible for the point. And I think this is something we have to pass today.
Thank you, Councilor DeMarco. I think, go ahead, Councilor Giroux. You want to say something?
I guess I have a question for the subcommittee or Mr. DeLuiso, if you're still on the phone, but do we have any data on resident parking passes and in relation to how many cars we actually have in town? One concern that I have with this motion is that if it were to pass tonight, there are a lot of residents who live down the point or elsewhere in town that don't have parking passes. And if this were to pass tonight, I guess what kind of education can we get out there to the public to let them know how they can obtain a parking pass, especially during COVID? I know this is something that we dealt with on Winthrop Beach as well, but things are ever changing in this COVID environment. So I just want to make sure that folks who, don't have a parking pass now because perhaps they have a driveway or they have a private lot that they park in every night, they know how to get a pass and they know that they're going to need one now if they go park down Point Shirley to visit a friend or whatnot. So,
Steve, I actually have that info, and I actually collaborated with Mike, and he can correct me if I'm wrong on anything. But if I'm correct, there are 6,679 parking stickers that have been distributed amongst the town. And there are also an additional 2,000 visitors passes that have also been distributed amongst the town. To put that in perspective, there's approximately almost 11,000 excise tax bills that went out. So that should give you a little bit of a sense for the amount of stickers and visitors passes versus the amount of cars that are in the town.
Okay. And maybe a question for perhaps Austin or Anna, I'm not sure, but just getting the word out, or Councilor Conti, just getting the word out to folks that do need resident stickers. How can we do that now with COVID? Is it still an online process and it's mailed to your house?
Yes. So it'd be an online process sent to your house. And if this is a change being that we're going to go forward with, then we will do an information campaign on it, put out a press release on it, put it in the blog and stuff like that, and try to get the word out to the best of our abilities. And maybe for a period of time, the tickets are warnings, just to kind of ease people into things and stuff like that, to kind of indicate a little bit more like, hey, if you're from here, did you get a parking pass? If you're not from here, did you know you can't park here and you can park in this location or this other location, that type of thing. But if you guys change the rules on something, we're here to enforce them accordingly and help inform the public about it.
Thank you.
President Boncory?
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
The chief also made a suggestion that several years ago, people were discussing whether Winthrop Taxi could set up some kind of shuttle service with golf carts from parking on Veterans Road. So I will contact Winthrop Taxi to find out whether they're still interested in anything like that.
Okay.
If the council feels that parking on Veterans Road is a possibility.
Thank you. Let's stay on this motion. Councilor Lettieri.
You're on mute again.
Yourself.
I applaud the committee for.
I read your lips just then. Be careful.
I applaud the committee for going back and taking a closer look at this. I have concerns. I think if this is something that we are going to go forward to, since resident stickers are free now, they should be given out to everybody that pays an excise tax bill. And I'm concerned, well, I 100% agree with what Austin said, that there should be a vast period where there are only warnings given out, but there needs to be warnings given out so we can have an idea as to how many cars would have been ticketed, if nothing else. I do think it's also important that, we're very concerned, and I know Austin just said about an email and a blog thing. That's great for the people who live in Winthrop, but what kind of signage is going to be in place if you want this to start this Friday, I believe? Is there going to be signage on every street, or, there could be somebody just coming here from wherever just to go to the beach for a day and park out there. And I know that, hopefully there's going to be warnings and not tickets given out for the majority of this trial. But what kind of signage is going to be in place, where the money is going to come from to pay for it, and how quickly would it be up?
We can work on temporary signage that doesn't really have a huge cost associated with it. And we can maybe get one of the message boards to that area. And then from there, we can explore some more permanent. I can talk with the DPW director about what semi-permanent solutions look like for the trial. But I think we would be able to spin up smaller metal signs quickly. And then again, like I said, with the applying for a state grant, part of that was for signs concerning wayfinding that would have e-ink elements to them, so they could kind of display different messaging that we would want out in the community. And one of the things that I talked about with that company, and honestly, the turnaround for this would be a little tight, but would be having Winthrop represented in a map on part of this display, and basically directing people to certain areas of town where it's most prudent for people from out of town to park, so that they didn't impact local people and the places that we'd like to stay residential parking. So signage is something that we can work on. If this is, again, if we're going forward with this, more than happy to figure out the path forward and how to do it. But I think it's something we can pull together for Friday.
Okay, and just one quick comment. I know, we're talking about a human rights committee, which I think is a great idea, but we're doing all this stuff for inclusion, and now by doing this, we're telling people we don't want you here. I understand we're giving people an opportunity to park in certain spots, but when we put all that money into the town landing and the pier and all that stuff, that was to try to bring people to Winthrop. Now, those people wouldn't have cars, so we wouldn't have to worry about them. But we want to be inclusive. And now the first thing we're doing 2 days after we're creating a committee is to, exclude certain people. I think they've done.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah. Just give me 1 second.
Go ahead, finish.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, I think from where this started a couple of weeks ago with the original proposal and the work you guys done is fantastic. And I still think I probably will support it with the changes that you've made. But I just, we're talking about, I'll let you respond to it, but we're talking about being inclusive as possible. And then 2 days later, we're trying to exclude, limit the amount of people coming in.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Vice President Lettieri. And let me tell you, I was surprised. And I think I shared this with a lot of counselors. I was surprised when I got the pushback on the program, because a lot of people did bring up inclusion, especially in the era that we're living in right now. We want to be a welcoming community. And I was disappointed in myself because I didn't see that coming. And maybe I should have. Maybe that's something I should have seen coming, is that, we weren't being inclusive enough. So the fact that we have a beach now where you have a public landing and you can park in front of the beach for free. You go to Marblehead, you pay to park. You go to Nahant, you pay to park. You go to other areas, you pay to park to go to the beach. In Winthrop, you do not have to pay to park at the beach. And yet at the same time, the residents will now have the freedom under this pilot program to be able to park and know that they won't have their spot taken up by somebody who's coming from out of town, not parking in front of the beach and using the beach. And the other thing is, we're not excluding anybody from Winthrop. The whole town can park anywhere they want to in Winthrop. It only affects people who come from out of town, and we're just saying, hey, you either park at the beach wall or you park at the landing and you walk. That's it. That's it. So I think, on the contrary, I think this makes us one of the most inclusive beaches on the North Shore.
Thank you. And I want to point out that I also got a letter on this issue from Rosemary and Peter Ottaviano, who wanted the proposal to change to allow parking at Point Shirley to include the Euro Beach waterside, but you've moved this down past the Euro Beach waterside. But that is a letter that came in from the Ottavianos. All right, we're ready to vote on this. Everybody, please listen up for a roll call. All those in favor? Roll call, please.
Council Ruggiero,
Yes.
Council Flockhart,
Yes.
Council DeMarco,
Yes.
Council Christopher,
Yes.
Council Honan,
Yes.
Council Conti,
Yes.
Council Farino,
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri,
Yes.
President Boncory.
Yes, passes unanimously. Motion's passed. I'd like to now pass the gavel over to Vice President Lettieri. Can you get this over here? Grab it. Thank you.
Got it. Got it.
All right. I have quite a few appointments to make. As everybody should be aware, most of the committees and commissions end on June 30th of each year. They're supposed to be staggered, so every committee or commission has certain people leaving every year of a 3-year term, and those have to be filled. So as of June 30th, there became some vacancies, some by resignation, some not by resignation, and some have asked to be reappointed, and some are being reappointed. If you are on a committee now and you are due to expire on June 30th of 2020, please get your request in to be reappointed, because if you're not getting that request in, someone is going to be reappointed in your place at the next meeting. That appointment ends 2 weeks after the 30th. So on the 14th, those seats will be open for people that did not request being reappointed. But I have numerous appointments to make. The first one being, this is a motion by myself, that the town council accept the appointment to appoint Councilor Richard Farino on the Ordinance Review Committee to replace Councilor Tracy Honan, who had to step down because of conflicts with her job.
There's a motion by Council President. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Oh, it's an appointment. Okay, any discussion on it? All those in favor, we'll do a roll call vote.
Council Ruggiero,
Yes.
Council Flockhart,
Yes.
Council DeMarco,
Yes.
Council Christopher,
Yes.
Council Honan,
Yes.
Council Conti,
Yes.
Council Farino,
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri,
Yes.
President Vecchia, President Boncory, oh my God, President Boncory.
I'm making these appointments, not Mr. Vecchia. Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Council President, back to you.
Thank you. Next motion is a motion that the town council accept the reappointment by Council President Philip Boncory to reappoint Jerome Falbo to the Massport Citizens Advisory Committee. It's called CAC. He's been on it for some time. He's on the executive committee, and he's very active on both the executive committee, the airport operations committee, and the CAC committee.
Recommendation by Council President, second by Councilor Farino. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Council Ruggiero,
Yes.
Council Flockhart,
Yes.
Council DeMarco,
Yes.
Council Christopher,
Yes.
Council Honan,
Yes.
Council Conti,
Yes.
Council Farino,
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri,
Yes.
President Boncory.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously. Council President.
Next motion is that the town council accept the reappointment made by town council of president to reappoint the following non-policy making committee members. Citizens Advisory Committee on Finance, Karen Chavez and William Galtz. The Disabilities Commission, Richard Currier. The Scholarship Committee, Karen Chavez, and Registrar of Voters, Denise Mahoney.
We'll take this as an inclusive motion. There's a second on the floor. Councilor Farino seconds the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Councilor Denise, please, a roll call vote.
Counselor Ruggiero,
Yes.
Counselor Flockhart,
Yes.
Counselor DeMarco,
Yes.
Counselor Christopher,
Yes.
Counselor Honan,
Yes.
Counselor Conti,
Yes.
Counselor Farino,
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri,
Yes.
President Boncory.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Council President.
Motion that the town council accept the reappointment made by town council president Boncory to reappoint the following policy-making committee members for a term to expire on June 30th, 2023. And they are Board of Appeals, Irene Dwyer. Planning Board, Gina Demento. Board of Assessors, Paolo Franzese Esquire.
We will take these policy-making committees all inclusive. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Farino. Any discussion on the appointments? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Counselor Ruggiero,
Yes.
Counselor Flockhart,
Yes.
Counselor DeMarco,
Yes.
Counselor Christopher,
Yes.
Counselor Honan,
Yes.
Counselor Conti,
Yes.
Counselor Farino,
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri,
Yes.
President Boncory.
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Council President.
All right. The following motion is motion to appoint by the council president to policy-making committees for a term to expire on June 30th, 23. And they are Joseph Ferrara to the Conservation Committee, Mark Schiaraffa to the Board of License, and Robert A. Carroll to the Planning Board.
Seeing the motion, seeing the recommendation, is there a second? Second by Councilor DeMarco seconds the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Ruggiero,
Yes.
Counselor Flockhart,
Yes.
Counselor DeMarco,
Yes.
Counselor Christopher,
Yes.
Counselor Honan,
Yes.
Counselor Conti,
Yes.
Counselor Farino,
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri,
Yes.
President Boncory.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Council President.
Thank you. Now, there are many more appointments to be made. There are appointments that are open for the following committees: the Planning Board, the Airport Hazards Committee, the Committee on Disabilities, the Scholarship Committee, the Council on Aging, and hopefully the Human Rights Commission, if we put that on the ballot for next time. So anyone that's interested in serving on these committees as a volunteer, please go onto the town website, fill out an application. We have room for people that want to get involved. We'll find room for you. So please fill out an application and get it in for one of these committees or the other. You heard what they were. All right. Also now, under new business, I want to send the question of whether or not we should have a Human Rights Commission or a Disability Commission to Rules and Ordinance Committee to debate and bring back a mission statement and a motion to have this committee made. Most committees are set up in our rules, not in our ordinances, but in our rules. So it asks the Committee on Rules and Ordinance to accept this challenge and to bring back in 2 weeks a motion with a mission statement for either a human resource committee or a human relation committee or a diversification committee, one or the other. But I would like a 9-member committee to have the ability to appoint at the next meeting.
Council President, can I ask a question for a second? Why wouldn't you put that as part of the agenda for the Ordinance Review Committee so they can address it and it can be put in the charter officially?
Because like many of our committee, that would take another year until next November to get voted. And I think it's a prime issue now that we have to address at the present time. And I think if you look at our rules, you'll see that most of our committees are set up in the rules and not in the charter, such as the Memorials Committee and.
But this would be a functioning committee, which would have powers. This would be a functioning committee, which would have powers.
No, it would not be a policy-making committee. It would be a non-policy-making advisory committee to come to.
Because some of the other communities that have set them up, they actually have powers with them.
Well, it's up to the committee to look at, but I don't envision it as a.
So why don't we do a study committee?
No, I'm looking to get an advisory committee set up, and I'd like to send it to the committee of rules and ordinance, and anybody can go there and debate what the committee should be and how it should be set up.
I think it's a great idea, but I just think that if we expedite it, we should do it in a way that it's bedded in stone and it's there forever. So, I mean,
Council President.
It's in the rules. It'll be in stone.
Yes, Council President. So quickly, the council can make an advisory committee very quickly. That committee then can report back to the council on any topic. They can't hold hearings, like legal hearings. They can't hear out staff on things, and they can't make policy. That said, and I agree with you that other communities have given these types of committees more authority and rulemaking powers and policymaking powers and things like that. A natural extension of an advisory committee could then be explored in the rules and the ordinance review committee or the charter review committee. That could be something that if that committee sees fit to make that type of change and give that type of authority to another committee, that could be then written into the charter. So you can kind of get the quick acting things with an advisory committee in the short term, and longer term explore giving them some real authority if however the subcommittee sees fit.
Yeah, and I'll say I agree with that. I think that the ordinance review committee would be well positioned to make those changes in the long term. But I think it's important that we respond to so many people in the community that have been really vocal about getting this in place. And I even think I'd take that a step further and say I think that we should be accepting applications for this over the next period of 2 weeks between the next two meetings, so that we can act even more expeditiously than we would be through this ordinance period. Because I think it's just that important that we're acting fast on this, because I know that there's a lot of activity in it. And in the past, when we have taken this into subcommittee and debated it into oblivion, a lot of times, we lose those people who have really pushed for it. And I don't want to see that happen again. So I'd like to see us, figuring out who is interested in being a part of this commission and really moving this across the goal line so that we don't have what happened last time happen again.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of sending it to the Rules and Ordinance Committee signify by saying aye. Oh, no, take a roll call. No, we're saying aye during a roll call.
All right.
Did we do an actual motion to send it to?
I just said a motion to send this to the Rules and Ordinance Committee.
I'll second. Rob DeMarco? Okay. Sorry. Okay. Council Ruggiero?
Yes.
Council Flockhart?
Yes.
Council DeMarco?
Yes.
Council Christopher?
Yes.
Council Honan?
Yes.
Council Conti?
Yes.
Council Farino?
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri?
Yes.
President Boncory?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion
Okay.
passes.
We are now open for public comment again. Public comment, again, the number is 646-558-8656. ID number is 845-4787-5427. Is there anyone waiting? I see 3 on chat. Is there anyone waiting to be heard?
Yes, Kurt Millar, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yes, how are you doing?
Hi, Kurt. How are you? Did you enjoy your first meeting?
I did, actually. Thank you very much for the nominating me and having me on that committee now. I'm kind of going off subject of what was talked about tonight, and it'll be as quick as possible. This is, I think, maybe more directed to Austin. The WIN 2030 with the MAPC feedback, I actually went through it. I kind of stopped the first time through because I was trying to figure out if it was actually looking for feedback or having me just decide what the determination of the questions were already. I think the citizens, people I've spoken to, were looking to be able to give feedback. Every question is predetermined. And there's absolutely nowhere to actually give any kind of other feedback than what is already given to you to answer to. The one biggest thing that concerned me that I saw on that was the 4 options of what that middle school lot would end up being. I think they're great, but there's absolutely no feedback other than those 4 options that are there. So I think it's a little disheartening for me where we're looking to give feedback and look for the vision for the future, and yet it's very limited to somebody who's already predetermined what that's going to be. Just a little feedback on that. After talking to some friends, a bunch of people actually feel that way, and people said they're not even going to go through that and give any kind of input on what's there, which you know, kind of troubles me. But I'm glad to see it was actually done. A few quirks in the beginning where you went online and you couldn't even see the actual maps and layouts of different things, but it looks like it changed and is a little bit more functional now. So
I would definitely welcome everyone to come participate in the next public session that there is. We already had one that was sparsely attended, unfortunately, but we welcome everyone's viewpoints. It's just really hard to work through those large-scale surveys if you leave lots of questions open-ended, because it's very hard to analyze the information. So totally get where you're coming from. I think that MAPC is just trying to make it a little bit easier on themselves in terms of coordinating all the information.
Yeah, I do appreciate what was put out, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Anyone else on public comment?
Yes, in keeping with the Millars, Wendy, you're up.
Hey, Wendy, was a family team up here, tag team?
Yeah, well, you know, when you ask for people to get involved, look what happens. First and foremost, I wish I could see all of your faces at once. I want to thank you wholeheartedly for looking at and sending this to Rules and Ordinances for the development of either a Human Rights Commission, a Diversity, Equity, Inclusivity, and Accessibility Committee. I think that we're primed for it right now. We have a lot of folks who've been doing a lot of background work already. And I'm going to let you all know my application will be in as soon as the application's up. I'm very interested in helping with your move forward in these kinds of levels of things that are happening here in town and the way we're perceived by others. But I just thank you very much, each one of you, for considering this to come out and to be a part of moving Winthrop forward. It's part of our vision, right, of who we're going to be.
Yes. Thank you, Wendy. Anyone else?
I don't see any other hands up, sir.
I see 4 chats. Is that questions that we need to answer?
No.
No, nothing we have to answer there, right?
Mm-mm.
Okay, great. I will, under public relations, anyone want to be heard?
Council President?
Yes.
Thank you. And just as Council Vice President and on behalf of the council, I know it's been a couple of weeks since we last met, and in the interim, you lost your mom, and I'd just like to offer our sincere condolences. She was a remarkably kind woman who led an extraordinary life for 96 years and left a remarkable legacy in her family, and just want to offer you our sincere sympathy.
Thank you so much. To all my fellow councilors, I thank you for all the condolences, the mascots and gifts and flowers. I appreciate it. To the town of Winthrop, it was an overwhelming response from the people in Winthrop that did remember my mom. She had a great life and she fed a lot of you, and she's resting in peace. Thank you all. Okay, is there anything else anybody has? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Council Ruggiero,
Yes.
Council Flockhart,
Yes.
Council DeMarco,
Yes.
Council Christopher,
Yes.
Council Honan,
Yes.
Council Conti,
Yes.
Council Farino,
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri,
Yes.
President Boncory.
Yes.
We are done.
Motion is passed. We are adjourned.